Tom Hayes had always been a man of ambition, though his rise in the corporate world had been anything but smooth. 5 years ago, he had joined Stratatech, a mid-sized tech firm known for its innovative software solutions and aggressive corporate culture. It was a company that thrived on bold ideas and ruthless competition, traits that Tom had learned to navigate with caution. He had started as a junior developer, a cog in the machine, but over the years, he had risen through the ranks due to his exceptional coding skills and his knack for identifying emerging market trends. Still, no matter how much effort he put in, one person always seemed to stand in his way. Victor Green, the company's vice president of development. Victor was a master of corporate manipulation, a man who had climbed to his position not through innovation, but through charisma and cunning. He had a knack for taking credit for other people's work, dressing it up as his own, and pitching it to the higher-ups as revolutionary. Tom had seen it happen before. Colleagues who had pitched brilliant ideas only to watch Victor present them as his own in flashy boardroom meetings. Each time it happened, Tom felt a simmering resentment, but he kept his head down, focusing on his work and biding his time. He knew he had something bigger brewing, something that could not be stolen so easily. For the past year, Tom had been working on a side project that combined his expertise in AI with his passion for financial analytics. It was a predictive algorithm designed to analyze stock market trends by correlating historical data with real-time news events, economic indicators, and social media sentiment. The AI-driven app, which he named ForecastX, was capable of analyzing vast datasets and generating accurate predictions for stock market fluctuations within seconds. It was not just a concept. Tom had already developed a working prototype, refining it in the late hours after his regular workday ended. He had poured everything he had into it, convinced that it was his ticket to financial independence and recognition. But Tom was not naive. He knew the risks of sharing his idea too soon, especially under Victor's watchful eye. He had seen the man destroy careers, claiming credit for ideas that were not his, spinning narratives to paint himself as the genius behind every innovation at Stratatech. And yet Tom felt trapped. To take ForecastX to the next level, he needed resources, data servers, financial backing, a team of developers, all things that Stratatech could provide. The alternative was to quit his job and venture out on his own, a risky move without guaranteed funding or market access. For weeks, Tom agonized over the decision, weighing the pros and cons, wrestling with his own self-doubt. He considered approaching Victor directly, hoping to secure a development budget and a formal team to help scale ForecastX. But every time he thought about it, the memory of Victor's smug grin flashed in his mind, the way the man had smirked as he took credit for a data encryption protocol that Tom had spent months developing. It was a grin that said, "You're nothing without me." Tom's frustration only grew when he overheard a conversation between Victor and a group of executives in the break room. Victor was bragging about a supposed new project that would revolutionize financial forecasting, a vague concept that sounded suspiciously similar to ForecastX. Panic set in. Had someone leak his idea? Had Victor somehow gotten wind of it? Tom felt the walls closing in, his mind spinning with paranoia. He needed to act, and fast. That night, Tom stayed late at the office, the glow of his computer screen the only light in the empty room. He opened the ForecastX prototype, scanning through the thousands of lines of code he had meticulously written. And that was when the idea came to him, a hidden line of code, a trap that only he would know about. If Victor somehow managed to steal the concept, he would find himself in possession of a product that appeared to work perfectly but would inevitably fail during a live demonstration. It was not sabotage, Tom reasoned. It was insurance. Tom inserted the trap carefully, concealing it within a subroutine that controlled data synchronization. The code was simple yet devastating. During regular testing, the app would function as expected, flawlessly processing data and generating accurate predictions. But once it detected a specific sequence of data inputs, a combination only Tom knew, it would crash, displaying error messages that would make the entire algorithm appear faulty. It was a digital dead man's switch, a safeguard against betrayal. Satisfied, Tom saved the modified code and encrypted it with a password known only to him. Then he backed up the original version, storing it on a secure external drive hidden in his apartment. If Victor tried to steal ForecastX, he would be in for a nasty surprise. But if things went according to plan, Tom would never have to use the trap. He would present the project himself, under his own name, and finally get the recognition he deserved. The next day, Tom walked into the office with renewed confidence, ready to pitch ForecastX to Victor and secure the funding he needed to bring it to market. But as soon as he stepped into Victor's office, he knew something was wrong. Victor was sitting behind his desk, scrolling through a series of PowerPoint slides that looked disturbingly familiar. On the screen was the ForecastX logo, the same one Tom had designed in the early stages of the project. Next to it were data graphs, flowcharts, and algorithmic models. All the elements of ForecastX rebranded under a new name, FuturePro. Tom's heart sank. Victor looked up, flashing that same smug grin. "Oh, Tom," he said, his tone dripping with false sympathy. "I was just reviewing this incredible new project we're about to present to the board. It's called FuturePro, a revolutionary AI app for predicting stock market trends. Can you believe it? Our development team really outdid themselves this time." Tom's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't confront Victor outright. Not yet. Instead, he smiled tightly and nodded. "Looks promising," he said, his voice steady. "I'd love to hear more about it." Victor leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Oh, you will," he said with a smirk. "We're launching the demo next month. I expect you to be there. After all, it's going to put Stratatech on the map." Tom left Victor's office with his jaw clenched and his mind racing. The trap was set. Now all he had to do was wait for Victor to step right into it. Tom sat in his darkened apartment, the blinds drawn and the room illuminated only by the dim blue light of his computer screen. On the monitor was a document filled with dates, times, and files, all evidence meticulously compiled over the past week. He had spent hours combing through Stratatech's internal servers, piecing together a digital paper trail that outlined Victor's theft in painful detail. Every file Victor had accessed, every email he had sent regarding FuturePro, every PowerPoint slide with the ForecastX algorithm disguised under a new logo, Tom had it all saved and securely encrypted. But evidence alone wasn't enough. Victor was a master at spinning narratives, a man who could lie convincingly even under pressure. If Tom simply presented the evidence to the board, Victor would claim it was all a misunderstanding or accuse Tom of being a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. No, Tom needed something undeniable, something that would leave Victor with no room to wriggle out of the trap. Tom leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in days. Memories of the meeting with Victor replayed in his mind, the smug grin on Victor's face as he paraded Tom's work as his own. The sheer audacity of it still made Tom's blood boil. How many times had he heard Victor dismiss his work as overly ambitious, too risky, not viable for the current market? And now, Victor was the one pitching it as the next big thing, the very idea he had once mocked. Tom's mind whirred with plans, each more complex and dangerous than the last. He thought about going to the press, leaking the story anonymously to a tech blog. But that would only hurt Stratatech, not Victor personally. Besides, he wasn't interested in burning bridges or sabotaging the company. All he wanted was justice, to expose Victor for the thief he was and reclaim what rightfully belonged to him. It was then that Tom thought of Amy. They had worked together for 3 years before she left the company under suspicious circumstances. Officially, she had resigned to pursue other opportunities, but everyone knew the truth. She had clashed with Victor. Amy had been one of the brightest minds in the development team, a sharp, no-nonsense coder who had developed a cutting-edge encryption protocol that Victor had later presented as his own. When she tried to confront him, Victor had accused her of insubordination, effectively forcing her out of the company. Tom hadn't spoken to Amy since she left, but he still had her number saved. Without giving himself time to second-guess the decision, he picked up the phone and dialed. The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice wary and tired. "Tom, is everything okay?" "Amy, I need to talk to you," Tom said, his words coming out in a rush. It's about Victor. He did it again. There was a pause. Then Amy's voice hardened. Tell me everything. Tom met Amy the next day at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, a place where they wouldn't be seen by any Strata-Tech employees. Amy looked different. Her once bright eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, her posture tense and guarded. But as Tom recounted what had happened, the old fire began to spark in her eyes, her jaw setting in a hard line. That bastard, she muttered, clenching her coffee cup so tightly her knuckles turned white. I knew he was capable of stealing, but this? He didn't even try to hide it. He thinks he's untouchable, Tom said, leaning forward. But I've been documenting everything. I have a complete timeline of when he accessed my files, the emails he sent to the board, even the presentation slides with my algorithm dressed up as Future Pro. But it's not enough. Victor's good at spinning stories. I need to catch him in the act. Amy's eyes narrowed. You said there's a demo planned, right? Yeah, 2 weeks from now, Tom said. He's going to present Future Pro to a room full of investors. The board is expecting a flawless demonstration. If it fails, Victor's reputation is shot. A slow smile spread across Amy's face. And that's where the trap comes in. Tom nodded. I inserted a subroutine into the code, something that only I know about. During regular testing, the app will run perfectly, but once it receives a specific sequence of data inputs, it'll crash. But it won't just crash. It'll display a series of error messages that highlight flaws in the algorithm, making it look like the entire thing was poorly coded from the start. Amy leaned back, her expression thoughtful. So if we trigger the trap during the demo, Victor is finished. But we can't just sit back and wait for it to happen. We need to control the narrative, make sure the right people are watching when it all goes down. Tom felt a surge of adrenaline. Amy was right. It wasn't enough to let Victor crash and burn. They needed to ensure the fallout was public, undeniable, and damaging. What do you suggest? Tom asked. Amy's eyes gleamed. Leave that to me. I still have contacts in the industry, journalists who owe me favors. I can get one of them into the demo, posing as a potential investor. While Victor is fumbling with a malfunctioning app, we'll have someone recording everything, capturing every second of his downfall. Tom's heart pounded. It was a bold plan, one that could easily backfire if Victor caught wind of it. But Amy was determined, her jaw set with a grim resolve. And Tom knew she had as much to gain from this as he did, a chance to finally bring down the man who had stolen from them both. Over the next few days, Tom and Amy worked tirelessly, refining the plan. Amy reached out to her contact, a tech journalist named Mia Chun, who agreed to attend the demo as a potential investor. Mia was known for her hard-hitting exposés on corporate corruption and had a reputation for digging up dirt where no one else dared to look. She was the perfect ally, someone who could take the footage and turn it into a damning article that would spread like wildfire through the industry. Meanwhile, Tom continued to monitor Victor's every move. He watched as Victor held meetings with the development team, pushing them to polish the Future Pro app, oblivious to the hidden trap buried within the code. Tom felt a sick sense of satisfaction every time he saw Victor rehearsing his presentation, rehearsing lines that he had once heard Victor dismiss as impossible and too ambitious. Now, Victor was about to present those very ideas as his own, and Tom couldn't wait to watch him fail. But as the day of the demo approached, Tom began to feel the first pangs of doubt. What if Victor somehow discovered the trap? What if he hired a third-party developer to review the code and found the hidden subroutine? Or worse, what if the trap didn't work as planned? The night before the demo, Tom lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. If the plan backfired, he would not only lose his job, but also any chance of launching ForecastX under his own name. Everything was riding on this: his career, his reputation, his future. But as he closed his eyes, one thought kept him going. Victor had stolen his work, betrayed his trust, and humiliated him in front of the entire company. Tom had nothing left to lose, and in less than 24 hours, Victor would finally pay the price. The day of the demo dawned overcast and gray, as though the city itself sensed the tension simmering beneath the surface. Tom awoke to a knot of anxiety in his stomach. a mix of anticipation and dread. He had barely slept, his mind replaying every detail of the plan over and over, searching for flaws. Today was the day Victor Green would step into the trap, or Tom would go down in flames trying. Tom dressed carefully, choosing a simple black shirt and dark jeans that would help him blend into the crowd. He had no intention of drawing attention to himself today. Today, he was just another face in the audience, a nameless employee attending the demo like everyone else. As he slipped on his jacket, his phone vibrated with a new message. It was from Amy. All set. Mia es seen. We'll keep you posted. Tom took a deep breath, his jaw clenched. Amy had done her part, securing Mia Chen's entry as a supposed investor. Mia would be positioned at the back of the room, recording everything under the guise of taking notes for a potential investment analysis. If the plan worked, she would have damning footage of Victor stumbling through the malfunctioning app, footage that would destroy his credibility and prove once and for all that he was a fraud. As Tom entered Stratecheca's headquarters, the atmosphere was electric. The entire building seemed to pulse with excitement. Employees buzzing about the upcoming presentation, speculating about the so-called Future Pro. Tom forced himself to keep his head down, moving swiftly through the corridors, ignoring the curious glances from his coworkers. He couldn't afford to draw attention to himself. Not today. The conference room was already packed when Tom arrived. The lights were dimmed, and a massive screen dominated the front wall, bearing the sleek new Future Pro logo, a logo that should have been Forecast X. The sight of it made Tom's blood boil, but he forced himself to stay calm, slipping into a seat near the back, where he had a clear view of both the screen and Victor. Victor stood at the front of the room, exuding his usual smug confidence. He was dressed in a sharp gray suit, his hair perfectly coiffed, his expression radiating arrogance. Tom felt a flicker of anger as he watched Victor laughing and joking with the executives, basking in the spotlight as if he were the mastermind behind the technology he had stolen. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor began, his voice smooth and commanding. Thank you all for being here today. We're excited to present what we believe is the future of financial forecasting. Future Pro, an AI-driven app that can predict stock market trends with unprecedented accuracy. A product that will redefine Stratecheca's position in the tech world. Tom clenched his fists under the table, forcing himself to stay calm. He could see Mia out of the corner of his eye, seated near the back, her head down as she scribbled in a notebook. Amy had positioned her perfectly, close enough to capture everything but far enough away to remain inconspicuous. Victor clicked a button on the remote, and the screen came to life with a dazzling display of graphs, data charts, and market projections, all based on Tom's original algorithm. The audience murmured in approval, clearly impressed by the app's apparent sophistication. Victor smiled, basking in their admiration. What you're seeing here, Victor said, gesturing to the screen, is the culmination of months of research and development. Future Pro's AI engine can analyze billions of data points in real time, correlating economic trends, social media sentiment, and historical data to predict market fluctuations with 96% accuracy. Tom's jaw tightened. That was his line, the same pitch he had rehearsed for weeks before Victor had stolen it. The same words, the same data points, the same promises. But now they were being delivered by a thief in a tailored suit. And now, Victor continued, his smile widening for the main event. Let's see Future Pro in action. This was it. Tom's pulse thundered in his ears as Victor stepped to the side, handing control of the presentation to a junior developer seated at a nearby laptop. The developer's hands hovered over the keyboard, his face tense as he prepared to launch the app. Tom's eyes never left the screen, his heart hammering as the seconds ticked by. The developer pressed a key, and the app sprang to life. The interface appeared flawless, sleek, modern, deceptively functional. Data streamed across the screen, market graphs fluctuating in real time, predictions rolling in like clockwork. Tom felt a sickening lurch of dread. The app was working perfectly. Had Victor somehow discovered the trap? Had he removed the hidden subroutine without Tom knowing? But then, as the developer initiated the next sequence of data inputs, the screen flickered. Once, twice, and then, without warning, the graphs vanished, replaced by a blank screen filled with error messages. Red text scrolled across the screen, line after line of incomprehensible code flashing by at lightning speed. The audience gasped. Victor's smile faltered, his eyes darting nervously to the screen. "What's going on?" He snapped, his voice sharp. The developer's face was pale. "I don't know, sir. It was working a second ago. I don't understand." The screen continued to glitch, the error messages growing more chaotic by the second. The words "algorithm failure" flashed in bold red letters, followed by a series of diagnostic codes that Tom recognized as the ones he had programmed to trigger the crash. It was working. The trap was working. Victor's face flushed an angry red as he grabbed the remote, frantically clicking buttons, trying to regain control of the presentation. "This is a minor glitch," he said, forcing a strained smile. "Just a technical issue. We'll have it sorted out in a moment." But the screen only continued to glitch, now displaying a list of algorithmic flaws, each labeled with timestamps and data points that appeared to indicate gross coding errors. To the untrained eye, it looked as if the entire app had been poorly constructed from the ground up, a catastrophic oversight for a project meant to revolutionize financial forecasting. Tom felt a surge of adrenaline as he watched Victor squirm, sweat beading on his forehead, his confident demeanor unraveling with every passing second. The executives in the front row exchanged uneasy glances, whispers rippling through the audience. Mia was scribbling furiously in her notebook, her eyes fixed on Victor. Tom knew she was getting every word, every frantic command, every desperate excuse. This was it. The moment Victor's facade began to crumble. "Shut it down," Victor barked, his voice cracking. "Reboot the system." But it was too late. The screen went dark, the room falling into an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the muffled whispers of the confused audience. Victor stood frozen, his fists clenched, his face pale as the weight of the disaster settled over him. Tom sat back in his chair, his heart still pounding, a strange mix of relief and exhilaration washing over him. It was over. The trap had been sprung. And now, all he had to do was wait for the fallout to begin. The room remained deathly silent in the aftermath of the crash. Victor stood frozen at the front, his eyes darting desperately between the blank screen and the confused, murmuring crowd. The sleek, confident executive who had swaggered onto the stage moments ago was now visibly crumbling under the weight of the unfolding disaster. Tom watched it all with a cold, detached sense of satisfaction, his heart still pounding in his chest. He had done it. The trap had sprung. Now it was time to finish what he started. Victor cleared his throat, forcing a smile that came out as more of a grimace. "Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, this is a minor technical glitch. Our developers are working on it right now. We'll be back on track in no time." But his words fell flat. The audience wasn't buying it. Investors exchanged uneasy glances, some leaning forward, whispering to one another. The executives from the board sat rigid, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. Tom could almost feel the tension crackling through the air, a palpable sense of dread that hung heavy over Victor's head like a storm cloud. In the back of the room, Mia Chen remained focused, her notebook open, her pen scribbling furiously. Tom knew she was capturing every stammer, every strained smile, every desperate attempt to regain control. It was all going to be documented, every excruciating moment of Victor's downfall. Victor gestured sharply to the junior developer, who was frantically typing commands into the laptop, his forehead glistening with sweat. "Restart it," Victor hissed, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the tension. Now, the developer's fingers trembled as he attempted a reboot. The screen flickered back to life, but instead of the polished interface Victor had promised, the display was filled with a jumbled mess of error codes and corrupted data streams. Large red letters flashed across the screen. "System failure. Algorithm compromised." Tom felt a rush of adrenaline. It was working exactly as planned. The trap he had embedded within the code was operating flawlessly, creating the illusion of a catastrophic software failure. And the beauty of it was that the crash appeared to be the result of gross coding incompetence, a series of rookie mistakes that would be damning for anyone claiming to have developed such a sophisticated algorithm. Victor's face was a mask of fury and desperation. He grabbed the remote and began hammering buttons, as if brute force could somehow undo the damage. "There must be a bug," he said, his voice cracking as he forced another strained smile. "Just a minor bug. We'll get it fixed in no time." But the audience was no longer listening. Investors were already pulling out their phones, whispering hurriedly to their assistants. The board members exchanged dark, accusatory looks. Tom could hear snippets of their conversations, words like incompetence, disaster, and lawsuit drifting through the air. Victor was losing them. Tom leaned back in his chair, a sense of calm washing over him. He had done his part. Now it was time to deliver the final blow. He slipped out of his seat and made his way toward the back of the room, where Mia Chun was still writing furiously. As he approached, she glanced up, her eyes sharp and alert. "Got everything?" Tom asked, keeping his voice low. Mia nodded, her gaze never leaving Victor's floundering form at the front of the room. "Everything. And it's worse than we could have hoped for. He's unraveling." Tom swallowed, his throat dry. "Good. Now it's time to end this." Together, they made their way to the exit, slipping out unnoticed amid the chaos. The hallway outside was a stark contrast to the turmoil inside. Quiet, empty, a calm before the storm. Tom could feel his pulse in his ears, his mind racing with what had just happened. He had taken down Victor, exposed him as a fraud in front of the entire company. But the victory felt hollow. There was still one more thing he had to do. Mia followed him to the parking lot, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "What now?" Tom opened the trunk of his car and pulled out a small black USB drive. "This," he said, holding it up, "the original FourCastX prototype. The real version. The one without the trap." Mia frowned. "You're giving it to them?" Tom shook his head. "Not them. To the board. They need to see the truth, the real version, the one I built from the ground up. If they see what it can do, they'll understand that Victor didn't write a single line of that code." Mia studied his face for a long moment, her expression softening. "You sure about this? You could walk away, you know. Take FourCastX and start fresh. Forget about Stratatech. Forget about Victor." Tom's jaw clenched. "I could, but if I do, he'll get away with it. He'll spin the narrative, blame it on the developers, claim it was a technical glitch beyond his control. He's good at that. Too good." Mia nodded slowly, a look of understanding passing between them. "Then let's do it." They walked back into the building, the USB drive clutched tightly in Tom's hand. The conference room was in chaos. Executives shouting at each other, investors storming out, Victor desperately trying to salvage what was left of his reputation. Tom strode straight to the front, his eyes locked onto the board members who had gathered near the screen, their faces grim. "Tom," one of the board members said, his eyes narrowing. "What the hell is going on here?" Tom took a deep breath, stepping forward, his voice steady and clear. "I can explain everything, but first, you need to see this." He handed the USB drive to the developer, who hesitated, glancing nervously at Victor. But Victor was too busy arguing with an investor notice. The developer plugged in the drive, and the screen blinked to life, the FourCastX logo appearing in bold letters. The room fell silent as Tom began to speak. "This is the real app," Tom said, his voice firm. "The one Victor stole from me. The one he rebranded as FuturePro." The developer began running the program, and within seconds, the screen filled with flawless data projections, accurate market predictions, real-time analysis. The board members watched, their eyes wide, as the app performed seamlessly. No crashes, no errors, just perfect execution. Victor finally noticed what was happening and rushed forward, his face pale. "What the hell are you doing, Tom?" "This is my—" "No," Tom cut him off, his voice cold. "This is my work, my code, and I can prove it." Tom pulled out a folder filled with documents, emails, timestamps, design files, all evidence of the original FourCastX prototype. He laid them out on a conference table, his hands steady, his eyes locked onto Victor's. "You stole my work," Tom said, his voice echoing through the room. "You lied to the board, to the investors, to everyone. And now, everyone knows the truth." Victor's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The board members were already sifting through the documents, their expressions darkening as the evidence mounted. Tom stood tall, his shoulders squared, the weight of years of frustration finally lifting. As the room descended into chaos, security escorting Victor out, the board members demanding explanations, Mia Chun capturing it all on camera. Tom walked away, the tension in his chest easing for the first time in months. He had lost his job, yes, but he had regained something far more valuable: his integrity, his future, his name. Outside, the sky had cleared, the gray clouds dissipating to reveal a brilliant, cloudless sky. Tom breathed in the crisp, cool air, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. There was one more call to make. "Amy," he said when she answered. "It's done." Amy's voice was warm, relieved. "I knew you'd do it. So what's next?" Tom looked out over the city skyline, the sun shining brighter than it had in days. "I'm going to start over," he said, a small smile playing at his lips. "And this time, I'm doing it my way."